Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Manitoba under a state of emergency as some 17,000 people are forced to evacuate from several communities threatened by wildfire. Canada's PM applauds the U.S. Court of International Trade for striking down President Trump's tariffs. And will we have a Stanley Cup rematch between Edmonton and Florida? The Panthers have punched their ticket. Can the Oilers do the same tonight in Dallas?
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Thousands of people in the Prairies did not wake up in their homes today after wildfires forced evacuations. Some 17,000 people have been evacuated from several communities and First Nations in Manitoba as the province is under a state of emergency.
I spoke with Prime Minister Mark Carney to notify him of the state of emergency we have declared and to ask for help from the Canadian Armed Forces. The Prime Minister agreed to that request. I also had an opportunity to speak to Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, and we're working together to ensure any Saskatchewan people and Manitobans who are accessing healthcare in our province and will be impacted by this disruption to healthcare will be cared for. This is a moment of fear and uncertainty. This is a moment of concern. But I want to tell you that your fellow Manitobans will welcome you. We will get through this difficult period, and we'll get through this trying period the way that we always do, by working together.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has joined 3 First Nations in declaring a joint state of emergency in response to escalating wildfires in that province. Fire officials there say there's a critical shortage of firefighting resources, personnel, and air support. Meanwhile, residents of Red Earth Creek, Alberta, are taking shelter in a nearby recreational center. And speaking of Manitoba, a judge in Minnesota has sentenced 2 men to prison for their roles in a human smuggling operation that saw a family freeze to death in southern Manitoba near the Canada-U.S. border. Here is Steve Lambert with the Canadian Press.
Harsh Kumar Patel and Steve Shand were arrested after Border Patrol agents in Minnesota came across migrants walking across the border from Manitoba on a frigid day in January of 2022. Police on the Canadian side then found the bodies of a family of 4 from India who had frozen to death, lost in a blizzard as the wind chill dipped below -35. Court was told Patel was the organizer and Shand was a taxi driver who would pick people up on the American side. On that cold day, a Border Patrol agent caught Shand with some migrants and asked him if others were out there. The family was still missing, but Shand said no. The judge sentenced Patel to 10 years in prison and Shand to 6. The prosecution asked for longer prison terms, but said the sentences still send a strong message that anyone involved in human smuggling will face consequences.
With the lengthy sentences imposed today, we can send a strong message. A message that human life does not have a price tag, that human smugglers are callous and indifferent and have no regard for the safety of the people in their care, that illegally entering the United States carries grave risks, and that those who smuggle aliens into the United States will face harsh consequences.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is applauding a decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which announced it would be striking down President Donald Trump's broad-based tariffs against several countries. The U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that Trump does not have the authority to impose tariffs through the International Economic Emergency Powers Act.
Mr. Speaker, the government welcomes yesterday's decision by the U.S. Court of International Trade, which is consistent with Canada's long-standing position that the U.S. IEEPA tariffs were unlawful as well as unjustified. That said, we recognize that our trading relationship with the United States is still profoundly and adversely threatened and affected by similarly unjustified 232 tariffs against steel, aluminum, and the auto sector, as well as continuing threats of tariffs against other strategic sectors, including lumber, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. It therefore remains the top priority of Canada's new government to establish a new economic and security relationship with the United States and to strengthen our collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world.
The Trump administration filed a notice of appeal soon after the ruling came down. As for the business reaction to the U.S. court ruling, experts say Canadian businesses are not out of the woods yet. They warn that nothing changes overnight with this ruling, especially because Trump's administration filed a notice of appeal.
The market reaction in the short term, as we've seen, is relief. Generally, if tariffs go down, markets are happy. And conversely, if we see tariffs going up, markets are not happy. But how permanent this turns out to be, certainly in the context of the other measures which haven't been challenged, is really the key question. We know how important tariffs are to Trump's worldview. He's been talking about this for decades. So as you point out, you imagine the administration is not going to give up. And from that point of view, I would think the other countries that are negotiating with the U.S. Might think it's worth sticking with the negotiations because in the end, we imagine it is going to be something that the U.S. either can agree or disagree with, depending on how the partners react.
Even if the ruling is eventually upheld, Morris says Trump could potentially try to use several alternative levers to reimpose tariffs against Canada and other countries that were ruled unconstitutional. Business groups in Canada also say they don't feel the ruling brings any new certainty right now. The Lethbridge Region Economic Resilience Task Force says it's continuously working to navigate tariff impacts from the United States. On Thursday, Trevor Lewington, CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge, spoke at a public affairs meeting at the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. With Lethbridge identified as the 10th most susceptible city in Canada to be impacted by blanket tariff threats, Lewington says uncertainty remains in the minds of residents, even months after the initial tariffs were implemented.
Clearly, Lethbridge has been identified as significantly vulnerable to the impact of tariffs. 90% of our exports go to the U.S. market, so reason to be concerned. At the same time, we've seen a lot of change to tariffs, a lot of exemptions under free trade agreements. We've seen, the U.S. president, the U.S. administration back down on some threats to tariffs. So the Trump administration certainly has seemed to drop nuggets. Every time you turn around, there's another announcement or another threat or another tariff. So it's really difficult for business to make decisions. So I think the takeaway for all of us is we just need to be focused on what we're good at. Continue to produce goods, continue to look for cost efficiencies. As a country, we need to look for new customers. We need to focus on what's right for Canada. Certainly pay attention to what's going on in the U.S., but don't let that drive the whole conversation. Let's dig in and just make ourselves better.
Lewington also says that federal court ruling against much of Trump's tariffs is a good first step. He adds that the task force continues to build partnerships abroad, and he's confident that there will be global demand over what Alberta can provide for them. The Alberta NDP has officially announced the 3 candidates that will represent the party in provincial by-elections on June 23rd. Leader Naheed Nenshi will run in Edmonton-Strathcona, a seat previously held by former leader Rachel Notley. Nenshi had been trying to win a seat in the legislature for the first time. Nenshi is seen here with Gurtig Singh Brar, who will represent the NDP in Edmonton Ellerslie. And Bev Taves will try to win a seat for the NDP in Olds, Three Hills, a seat previously held by the former Speaker of the Legislature, Nathan Cooper, who will now be representing Alberta in Washington, D.C. Nenshi says these by-elections are important.
It's time for people to be able to send a message to this government. It is a message that we don't have to settle for what they're doing. We don't have to settle for substandard public services. We don't have to settle for unbridled corruption. We don't have to settle for an incompetent government. We deserve better, and better is possible.
Advanced polls for voting open on Tuesday, June the 17th, and remain open until Saturday, June 21st. A woman who escaped from an Alberta prison and taunted police on social media has been arrested in BC. Late last month, the Alberta Justice Centre informed police that 24-year-old Mackenzie Dawn Hardy had been inadvertently released from the Fort Saskatchewan Correctional Centre due to fraud. After the escape, Hardy taunted police on social media, saying she was a step ahead of them and that they couldn't catch her. RCMP were able to determine that Hardy had been assisted in the escape by 27-year-old David Joseph Wood. On Tuesday of this week, an RCMP officer in Revelstoke observed two individuals recognized as Hardy and Wood walking away from a stolen vehicle. Both suspects were arrested. Wood has been charged with assisting the escape of a prisoner, identity fraud, and uttering a forged document. On top of Hardy's outstanding warrants, she has also been charged with escaping lawful custody. They will both be transported back to Alberta. Lethbridge County and surrounding communities are joining forces on a new strategy to strengthen disaster response. The Regional Emergency Management Plan also includes the towns of Coaldale, Nobleford, Picture Butte, and the village of Barrons. Lethbridge County Emergency Management Coordinator Bria Taminga says administrative staff recently met for a briefing to look at how to better coordinate responses to large-scale or long-term disasters.
There's lots of hazards that are in southern Alberta, anywhere from our grass fires, flooding, train derailments are really the big ones that we do see, as well as severe weather such as tornadoes, as well as utility disruptions. So prolonged power outages could also be a reason that we might need to activate this to support the residents. So our next steps are really to do that orientation and training for our municipal staff. It's not just the ambulances and the fire trucks and the police, it's all of our municipal staff working together to support this plan. Continuing to do our incident command system training. We have a 200 level training scheduled, as well as some 300 for September, and then into November we'll be doing a tabletop with all of the municipalities.
The plan provides guidance on establishing emergency operations centers and communication protocols for informing the public, as well as risk assessments and training plans for recovery in affected communities. Well, Lethbridge County has also issued a fire ban due to hot, dry, and windy conditions that elevate the risk of wildfires to extreme. All burning is prohibited for residents, which includes campfires, incinerators, charcoal barbecues, and fireworks. Despite recent precipitation, the county says the wildfires currently raging across Western Canada are an apparent sign to negate any potential risks.
So we work with the province, and we also work with fire data that the province provides on a daily basis. It's to do with the dryness of the vegetation, as well as the amount of fire spread throughout that vegetation. So right now we're in extreme risk, and that's why we went to the fire ban. So even though we've had moisture in the last few days, but with the wind and the combination of the heat and the driving heat temperatures is driving up the risk. Overnight, actually, from the province, we've just realized that we've gone from 20 out of control wildfires to 25, which is quite alarming for fire officials across the province. Propane-fueled fireplaces or fire pits are more than welcome. Pellet stoves, so if you're smoking food or you're having that steak dinner, you can still smoke your food.
The county has Fire Smart initiatives on its website that residents can view online for steps they can take to reduce the risk of starting an out-of-control fire. Whoop Up Days 2025, the highly anticipated summer fair, returns to the Lethbridge and District exhibition. From August 19th to 23rd, the festival, which aims to bring families and community together, features programming that includes the Lethbridge and District Professional Pro Rodeo, Whoop Up Days Marketplace, and Family Fun Zone, Food Truck Zone, Parade, and music. So much stuff there. Paul Kingsmith, Director of Event Development for the Lethbridge District and Exhibitions, tells us what is new in 2025.
The Whoop Up Wrap-Up is something we're really excited to add, where it's sort of a minimized Whoop Up Days experience, but it focuses on that midway experience that we know that people like and that families like. And so we're able to offer a lower admission cost on that day, only $5 to get in. It won't have all the frills that Whoop Up Days has, but it will have the midway food trucks and the beer garden going. So putting more of a focus on making sure that there's a community aspect and we're bringing in new entertainment that's good for the whole family.
Some of the top competitors from around the nation, from around the world coming into Lethbridge. Over the past few years, we've been fortunate enough to build the rodeo up as one of the largest rodeos in Canada. So we would expect the same this year. We're expecting top-level quality competitors.
Whoop Up Days is a huge economic driver for our city. I think last year, Whoop Up Days saw something like 40,000 people through the doors. And so we know that could equate to, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are coming back into our city. So I really think that this year we could see a really high number and maybe double the amount that we saw last year.
Well, are you a proud Albertan who loves brain teasers like puzzles and word searches? If so, we have got a treat for you with this next story. A man from Newfoundland and Labrador, of all places, has created a word search specifically all about Alberta. It features over 100 puzzles that includes iconic landmarks, our many communities, waterfalls, parks, Alberta's must-sees and must-dos, sports teams, local businesses, famous Albertans, and even folks you may know. He's even got a News Anchors of Alberta section, which features yours truly. You might see my name in there. Yeah, that's right. I made it into the word search. Nick Cranford is the designer of the book. He says he was inspired by his grandnan, whose favorite thing in the world to do was word searches before she passed at the age of 92. There she is right there in the picture. Adorable. Although Nick is from Newfoundland Labrador, he says there's a big connection between the two provinces, and he hopes this book will bring people together.
Albertans, like everyone says, like Alberta is sort of like Canada's Texas, right? I mean, we all get that reference. And Albertans, Canadians in general, we're all proud of where we're from. Like Newfoundlanders, they're very patriotic where they're from. And I knew, because like Newfoundland has a big connection to Alberta, especially with the Fort McMurray and the work, right? It's like an interactive journey through the province is what I call it. And it's just a cool new way to travel through the province right from wherever you are, right? So I put it into action, and then I realized that it was much bigger than that. This could be much bigger. So I just made it a mission, especially now, with the love of Canada going on. I think Canada needs that, and Alberta especially needs all that love,
Cranford has completed word search books for 8 of the 10 provinces and 3 territories. He also has plans for a Canada-wide word search. You can find his unique puzzles available on Amazon. The Edmonton Oilers will have some new old faces in the lineup tonight for Game 5 of the Western Conference Final in Dallas. Matthias Elcombe will return on defense. That means Troy Stretcher comes out of the lineup, and Jeff Skinner will draw in to fill the void left by the injury to Zach Hyman. While he's excited to be back, Elcombe says it's tough to see Hyman's season come to an end.
Just feeling for him personally, what a playoffs he had too, and just contributing in a great way, and played his ass off. I mean, it's been great to watch him, and we're going to miss him for sure. But it's just that next man up in the playoffs. You're going to have guys that go down with injuries. That's just, I don't think any team has a 100% healthy lineup. That really shocked me. So it's part of the game. It's up to us, others in the room, to fill that void and hopefully keep the train moving in the right direction.
With a win tonight, the Oilers could move on to a Stanley Cup final rematch against Florida. The Panthers eliminated Carolina on Wednesday. I, for one, am wearing my Oilers colors today, so good luck to the Oilers tonight. Well, the sun is beaming down on us here and big time in southern Alberta, but some rain is on the way. I will be right back with the full forecast. Well, it was a scorcher out there today, and it looks like we may have broken a record. Last I checked in, we were actually higher than that at 32. We got to 33 today, which actually breaks a record set back in 1986, which was 32.4 degrees. So we did it. Could see a chance of thunderstorms tonight, always with that warm weather. You can see the development of those thunder showers for sure. Not quite a record breaker tomorrow, 29 degrees, although still warm. Clear skies. Saturday, we could also see that 32 degrees. If we do make it there, we'll also be breaking a record of 30 degrees, which was set back in 1956. And then Sunday, we're going to take a deep dip downwards there, 22 degrees. And then some showers begin Sunday evening into Monday. Monday only seeing a high of 15 degrees, high of 20 on Tuesday. Also, those showers continuing through that day as well. Into Wednesday, partly cloudy skies and high of 23. So we're going from way hot, record-breaking heat to more average type temperatures for this type of year. So the average temperature for this time of year is 20 degrees. 7 degrees is the average low. 33 was our record breaker on this day, happening back in 1936. And it was actually just a little lower than that. It was 32.4. And we did break that today, reaching 33. -2 was the record low on this day, which happened back in 1920 and 51. 5:31 is when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 9:27 p.m. So we're 2 minutes longer today than we were yesterday. So 15 hours and 56 minutes of daylight. On the west coast tomorrow, mainly sunny skies, 21 for the high in Victoria. Near the shore, though, there's some onshore winds, making it feel more like 15 degrees, 22 in Vancouver, but further inland, we're looking at 25 degrees. There was a heat warning in effect today and tonight for Edmonton, also a thunderstorm warning. Edmonton did reach 33 today, but only 23 tomorrow, so that'll be quite the reprieve there. And then Calgary also was under a heat warning today, but tomorrow only 26 degrees, which is still warm for sure for this time of year, especially. We're reaching higher than averages. Over the rest of the prairies, Saskatoon seeing a risk of thunderstorms and some showers, 26 for the high, 27 in Regina with clear skies, 30 in Winnipeg with clear skies, also hazy conditions due to those many wildfires burning in Manitoba. Of course, our hearts are with all our friends in Manitoba there. As we look to the central part of the country, let's get over there, shall we? We're seeing a lot more rain, drizzle, and showers happening. 24 for the high in Toronto, seeing some shower activity, periods of rain actually as well in Ottawa and Montreal, coming in at 22 in Ottawa, 23 degrees in Montreal. Looking into Atlantic Canada, let's look at the Maritimes here. Fredericton, high of 24 degrees, showers and a risk of thunderstorms. Same thing for Halifax, showers, thunderstorms expected at 23 for the high, 22 in Charlottetown, expecting some periods of rain and a mix of sun and cloud in St. John's tomorrow with high of 18 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast. A new report card on government home building policies doesn't paint Canada's provinces in a good light, with Alberta in particular at the back of the class. The Task Force on Housing and Climate says the federal government has earned a B grade for its efforts to get homes built both quickly and sustainably. The report grades governments on factors like their efforts to encourage density and update building codes. Alberta earns a D+ for its efforts despite the robust pace of housing starts. Municipal land use policies like green belts and urban growth boundaries have added to the housing availability and affordability crisis. David Lease, president of the Frontier Center for Public Policy, explains more.
Urban planning has put very strong strictures or restrictions on the use of land. And so that's really been the main variable or cause of creating this affordable housing crisis. So we've done it to ourselves, and this has really had a major impact on the price of a house, because the major price of a house is not the house per se, it's actually the price of the land. And so this is what's really driving this crisis.
TELUS says it will spend more than $70 billion to enhance connectivity over the next 5 years, planning improvements to its network infrastructure and new artificial intelligence data centers. The telecommunications company says funding will go toward reinforcing fiber connectivity across BC, Alberta, Quebec, and Ontario. The company says 2 new AI data centers are also planned for Kamloops, BC, and Rimouski, Quebec. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 72 points on the day to finish at 26,210. The Dow was up 117 to 42,215. The S&P 500 was up 23 points to 5,912, and the Nasdaq was up 74 to 19,175. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 92 cents to $60.92 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 2 cents to $3.53 US. Gold was up 31.42 to $33.1773 US an ounce, and silver was up 34 cents to $33.31 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.76 per bushel, barley is at $6.90, canola is at $16.19, and corn is at $7.87 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was up $1.60 to $215.52. Feeder cattle were up $4.30 to $299.92 for the August contract, and lead hogs were down 25 cents to $100.02 for the June. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $72.40 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has joined Manitoba in declaring a province-wide state of emergency. Uncontrolled wildfires have forced around 17,000 people from their homes in both provinces. Thousands of evacuees are now staying at evacuation centers in Winnipeg. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says the Prime Minister has agreed to send the military to help with evacuation flights. Canada's Housing Minister Gregor Robertson has reportedly said that Canada's housing prices do not need to come down. However, a study conducted by an independent think tank proves otherwise. David Leese, president of the Frontier Centre for Public Policy, says Canada has a housing affordability problem. We'll hear his thoughts on this hot-button issue coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Is Canada's housing affordability crisis improving, or is it getting worse? Realistically, does today's generation have any hope of ever owning their own home? Well, joining us to discuss this issue is David Leese. He is the president of the Frontier Centre for Public Policy, an independent Canadian think tank, and also the host of Leaders on the Frontier podcast and television program airing on Miracle Channel. You may have seen him. So, David, great to have you with us today. Welcome.
Great to see you.
Okay, so David, your organization recently did a study entitled Demographia International Housing Affordability 2025, and you looked at 95 major housing markets in 8 countries, including Canada. So how did we do?
Well, it's a pretty grim picture, to be quite frank. In major housing urban areas in this country, we've got a housing affordability crisis, surprise, surprise. I'm sure that's nothing new, but the degree of it is really quite profound. It's really not enabling the next generation to own a home. So how did we do? It depends on which market you're in. In the 2 largest cities in Alberta, it did much better. Housing is certainly expensive, but it's much more affordable when we look at, we use a particular measure between your income, the family income, and the price of a home. And so there's a ratio number that we use, and we use that internationally. And the numbers for Calgary and Edmonton look much, much better than other places in the country. For example, in Vancouver, it's almost 13, the ratio. And so that means it's very unaffordable.
Okay, so what was the ratio in Calgary then and Edmonton?
Well, Calgary, as I recall, was at 4.8
Oh, wow.
on the scale, and Edmonton was 3.7. So
Okay, you
Edmonton
compare that to
is,
13, that's huge.
yes, it is. So it's a pretty grim picture in a number of those markets. As you know, if you think of well, Toronto came in at 8.4, and we had Montreal at 5.8. And you know, it's interesting. In the world, Hong Kong is at 14.4, and Vancouver's just behind that at almost 12. So if you look at these numbers, these are horrific for anybody trying to get a home in those markets like Vancouver and Toronto. So the good news is that Edmonton and Calgary, as an example, are relatively affordable, but still moving increasingly to be unaffordable for certainly new home buyers.
Yeah, for sure. So most of our big cities are expensive, but is there some hope in the smaller cities, or are these cities being impacted by the prices in big cities as well?
Indeed, there's a lot of people moving to smaller towns and other provinces that are much more affordable, for example, in Eastern Canada. In fact, that is a wave. We've done the statistics, and from about 2019 to 2023, there's been a wave of almost 300,000 Canadians that have moved to those smaller markets. So there's a good news story there, is that if small communities can open up land to allow those houses to be built, then people are willing to look at those markets to live in. There's a high quality of life.
Hmm. Now, the report draws a strong link between housing unaffordability and municipal land use policies like green belts, urban growth boundaries, and densification mandates. So, can you explain how these policies affect housing prices?
Yes. What's happened over the last many decades is that urban planning has put very strong strictures or restrictions on the use of land. And so that's really been the main variable or cause of creating this affordable housing crisis. So we've done it to ourselves. And this has really had a major impact on the price of a house, because the major price of a house is not the house per se, it's actually the price of the land. And so this is what's really driving this crisis.
It's unfortunate. So, what's the reasoning behind those policies, though? All the ones that I kind of just mentioned there. Are city leaders primarily doing this for environmental reasons, do you think?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of reasons. As someone who's related to a lot of wonderful urban planners over the years, there's a kind of a philosophy that we want to be very wise in terms of our land use, and that's appropriate. But what happens is it's going overboard. It's kind of become a trend to produce higher levels of densification in our urban cores, and in some ways, it makes sense to have basic restrictions, but it's gone overboard. It's also related to, I believe, a misunderstanding of how cities work. When we have the assumption that somehow everyone wants to live in a dense form of housing. So the assumption is that they can impose a kind of an urban form, when in fact they need to let the market also allow people to choose what kind of housing they prefer. And this has a huge impact. So in many urban areas, the only housing options that you have that are available are very small condominiums.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that leaves out quite a big, portion of the population that doesn't necessarily want to live in a small condo, right? Maybe they want a yard, maybe they have animals or, dogs. So what about the push to create these 15-minute cities? Can you explain what these are and how this kind of policy affects housing affordability?
Yeah, so the 15-minute city is really a figment of our imagination. It's kind of based on a romantic view of, say, 19th century Paris, where you could live in a central city and basically have everything within, quote, 15 minutes. The reality is that today, almost everyone has a vehicle. And it's not to say that, you can't use transit and those ways of transportation. But a 15-minute city does not realize that people work in different areas from where they live. And so they don't understand that the economy is actually foundational to our way of life. So you really can't divorce these issues. You have to work together and enable people to efficiently commute from one point of the city to another. Many people don't even live in the downtown, perhaps maybe 5 or 10%. It's hard to generalize from city to city, but people want to move from different parts of the city where they can not only live, but also where they can have a job.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at commutes alone in some of those bigger cities, some people are commuting like 90 minutes each way. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very good example is that if you don't understand how a city works, you're not doing your job in terms of urban planning and transportation to enable people to have a high quality of life. If you're commuting hours, and I know these people in different cities in Canada, they are commuting at horrendous time frames. So they may even be getting paid relatively well, but their life is impoverished because they don't have any time. If you're commuting some 3 to 4 hours a day, this has a horrendous price in terms of the community, including your own health, your time with your family, your ability to volunteer, your ability to really function. And this is really what is undermining people's quality of life in this country.
Oh, you're so right. Okay, so Canada's new housing and infrastructure minister, Gregor Robertson, has stated that he doesn't think housing prices need to come down and that rather the federal government should focus on building more homes. So what are your thoughts, David?
Well, I think we need to do that and all of the above. We need to moderate housing prices. The reality is that we're not meeting anywhere near what the market needs in terms of housing demand. And this is creating a catastrophe. It's creating more poverty as people cannot find a home. We've also pursued a set of policies that frankly makes it more expensive to build the home, but it's also very time consuming. Canada is at the second last rating of OECD countries, advanced countries, in terms of even building permit turnaround. And that's according to the organization of the OECD. The worst country I believe is Slovakia. So Canada has a long way to go in cutting the red tape, but also opening up the land so we can build housing. And we're not even close to meeting that demand.
The housing crisis also has a very real impact on our social system, doesn't it? So many families, of course, are forced to have both partners, both parents working just to afford mortgage payments. So that can also impact the well-being of a family unit sometimes.
This policy file, if there is a key one that's foundational to our quality of life and the whole issue of poverty, it's housing. So when we have unaffordable housing, we basically condemn people. We take them out of the middle class. People can't move forward in their lives. And if you're a relatively young person trying to establish a life and you can't buy a home, you're basically not being enabled to go forward in your life. And we've seen this time and time again where people are then condemned to their parents' basements. They're not able to move forward and create a family. And that has a huge consequence for Canadians. We're basically dissolving the Canadian dream.
Oh, for sure. Are we seeing any signs of provincial or municipal politicians moving towards loosening the restrictions on urban growth boundaries by any chance?
There are some that are trying to open up building permits to make them much more streamlined, but it is a very slow process. It's like this is an issue that has persisted for years. There's a lot of embedded interests, I would say, from consultants to all kinds of parties that have an interest in keeping the system slow and inefficient. And it's remarkable how slow it is to change. And I think this has been part of the criticism that they are the so-called gatekeepers that are really making an impact on Canadians' lives and their standard of living.
Are any cities starting to reduce or eliminate the excessively high development charges, fees that are now being charged to new housing builders?
Yeah. The short answer is that it's a very mixed bag. There's significant development charges, and I was a former mayor, I was quite involved in this kind of process, that legitimately want development to help cover its own costs. Growth should pay for itself in many ways. But some municipalities have arguably gone overboard. Instead of charging a fair price per lot, as an example, in the form of a development charge, they're using it as a cash cow. And they're using delays to be able to really shut out smaller builders in particular. It's very difficult to hold land. On average, it takes 7 to 10 years to build a development. There's very few people that have the money to be able to carry that kind of capital charge and then turn around and build it and go through all the myriad of red tape. So we have to take a hard look at every municipality and say, how do we open up not only the land, but streamline the process so we can get those houses built so people can live in them in an affordable way. And we need to have these kinds of targets. That's why we have these types of mathematical ratios, because they're proof and evidence that what we're doing in most cases is not working. And it's interesting, we released this report around the world, as you mentioned earlier, and in a number of these countries, this report is watched very closely. And for example, in Singapore, I just met with officials from Singapore last year. These are taken seriously as a way that evaluates and holds those different authorities accountable for how well they're enabling either affordable housing markets or not.
Okay. And big picture, what things, can our various levels of government do to make housing more affordable?
Well, this needs to be a full court press. We need to work together as a larger team and realize that the main culprit is really ourselves. It's this, not just the red tape, it's the lack of freeing up of land available. In conversation with the development industry, there's all kinds of developers that want to produce more land, produce more affordable quality housing product. We know them, but they often cannot find the land, and it's too difficult and time consuming to go through the process. So we need to take a hard, honest look at how we get on with this, because this is creating poverty. It is one of the things that is undermining the Canadian dream, and there are solutions. And we've seen this in other countries where they're starting to try to deal with this, but Canada needs to get with the program. We're, as a nation, the second largest nation in the world. So this whole idea that we have no land to develop and we can't open it up is absurd. We need places for people to live. Otherwise, we're condemning people to poverty, and that's wrong.
So let's say our government leaders somehow see the light and they make these changes. So how many years or decades would it take for housing to become affordable once again?
Well, there's I think a number of parts to that answer. I think it could happen much quicker than we realize if we have the political will to bear down on these issues and work as a team. But ultimately, it's the provinces working with the local municipalities that carry the primary weight on this.
Yes, amen to that. David, thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate having you on.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Pickleball is a sport that seems to be growing in leaps and bounds these days, but why is that? What's going on? I'm going to find out today because I am joined by Richard Boris. We are actually at the Coaldale Pickleball Club out in Coaldale, Alberta, of course. And Richard, you are one of the club directors. You're also a pickleball instructor.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about pickleball. What's going on? Why is this sport becoming so popular?
Oh, there's numerous reasons for it being more so popular. I guess it really took off with older people. They picked it up from down south in the States.
Yeah.
It's easy to learn.
Okay.
It's easy for older people to move around. It's inexpensive. And probably the biggest reason, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
It's a very social sport. I've met so many people since we started playing. it's a great sport.
So what is the difference between pickleball and tennis? I mean, we're basically on a tennis court here. The ball looks a lot lighter. The paddles look a lot different than tennis.
Yeah.
It's easier to play than tennis?
It's much easier to play with tennis. That's why it's one of the reasons it's really taken off. Okay. The court is much smaller. We've got 4 courts in here, and this is about the same area that you'd use for one tennis court. Okay, so you can play. There's 16 people here that can play at any one time. If it's tennis, it's only 2. Okay, so each court is a lot smaller than there, and it has some unique features. It's similar to tennis in that you're hitting a ball back and forth across the net, and singles pickleball looks a lot like tennis, but where the difference comes is you can play 4 people here. And if you can see the lines on the court, we have some very unique features and rules in pickleball that you don't have in tennis.
Okay.
One is, and some of the terminology is a little bit out there. That's the kitchen.
That's the kitchen.
And so it makes it changes the way you play the ball. There's unique, when we talk a little bit more about playing it, I can give you a little more detail about that. But we don't hit out of the air when you're serving.
Okay.
With tennis, we serve underhand.
So it's more like ping pong in that sense.
A little bit like tennis. It's a mix of all kinds of different paddle sports.
Right. That's so would you say it's more of a social sport than most other sports?
Absolutely. It's so social. You don't need a partner to come play at the clubs. We have apps that you just sign up to there and you can come here. You don't need a spouse to go play with, a partner. You come here. If we have it. If it's organized play, we will come here. There might be 20 people here, and there's always someone to play with. So you don't have to have, so in case your spouse wants to go golfing, you can come play pickleball.
That's funny. I feel like I only started hearing about this sport in the past couple of years, 2 to 3 years. So how long has it been around?
It's been around since 1965, I believe. It started in I believe Spokane or. Yeah, I think it was Spokane, Washington. Okay, it started there, and some fellas, it was a holiday, and they were looking for something for their kids to do, and they made up this game. And I think they had one too many beers because they have all this strange terminology.
That is stuck around for that many years.
And it's called Pickles. I've heard a couple different stories that their dog was named Pickles, and so they named it after him, but I've heard some other stories. I'm not too sure about that. So it's been around, but it's just taken off. It's been in the background, but it's really taken off probably about 2008, 9, and then it really started to grow.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenon now how quickly it's growing.
So you're saying these people invented it for their kids, but yet more older people seem to like it.
Well, and older people like it because we can play that. We're not moving as much. It's easier on our bodies. Okay. I mean, I got braces here. But I can play. And another reason is it's well organized. There's lots of tournaments. I don't think I played other sports. I was in judo and things like that, but my body can't take it anymore.
For sure.
I can come play pickleball, and I can play at a level like, there's not too many sports I can go and play at a national level. I can do that with pickleball.
I understand that you can take lessons at this court. You teach lessons.
Right.
What are some do's and don'ts on the pickleball court? Is there like some big no-nos?
Do's and don'ts? Rule-wise or etiquette-wise?
Etiquette. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Well, after a game, we always come and tap our paddles like this. Picture.
Okay, like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Thank you for the game.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a definitely do.
Okay. It's almost like a fist bump with your
yes.
Your paddle.
I think that's where it came from during COVID because the game really took off during COVID.
Okay.
So you don't have to touch, but
yeah.
but it's always been so. You always think, and you try to be very gentlemanly. Like when you're playing here, and the ball, you're watching if the ball goes in or out. So be gentlemanly about it. If there's a question or not about it, you call it out, give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So you want to be gentleman about it.
Yeah.
There's no swearing allowed. They'll if you're at
Darn.
yeah, I know. At a tournament, if you swear, you get a warning.
Fair
And then
enough.
they'll start taking points off.
Okay.
A do is definitely just have fun.
Okay, I like that. Okay, and then what about rules of the game? You were saying there was a lot of funny terminology.
Yes. Okay. Well, one of the main shots is called a dink shot.
A dink
okay?
shot.
So when we're teaching lessons, we
Thought
say,
you said
okay,
there's no swearing though in the game.
We start a lesson and we said, okay, we're going to learn a dink shot, and there's always everybody's giggling and laughing about it because it sounds a little strange.
Right.
So it's a shot that's unique to pickleball and what makes it different. Okay, the dink shot is it's a strategic, non-attackable shot. Okay, so what that means is we stand in front of that line there.
Okay.
And remember I mentioned that's
Maybe
called the kitchen.
Should we Should we demonstrate? Okay.
To start pickleball, well, we start with a serve. Okay. Now we're not serving as in tennis overhead.
Right.
In this sport, because we have a much smaller court, we serve underhand, what we call a bowling serve.
Okay.
Okay. We have to go, if you can see this court separated up into quadrants. Okay. So when we serve from this box here to that box over there.
Okay. So
diagonal. We always serve diagonal.
Okay.
Okay. So we pick a target. You want to watch yourself hit the ball to start with. Okay. Okay. We want to watch yourself hit it. We come underhand. We have to hit the ball below our waist. Okay. And we put it right over there. I'll just hit one and I'll let you try.
Sure. Okay.
We serve behind this baseline here.
Okay, I'm a lefty.
You're a lefty.
Yeah. So that's okay, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I don't have to go that way
No,
necessarily.
no. Okay. You want to.
But I have to be behind the line, right?
Okay. The angle of your paddle makes such a difference in pickleball because whichever angle you have, that's where the ball's going to go.
Yes.
So if you're going to aim to that quadrant, you want the paddle, straight. Okay. As soon as you turn it that way, you're going to go over that way or that way and not make it in. So you want to aim it right like that.
Okay.
And just hit it over there to your target.
Oh God. Now I feel on the spot here.
Oh.
Okay.
Beautiful. First serve, it's in.
It was a little low, but okay. All right. Oh, so that was high.
2 good serves. Excellent.
1 low, 1 high. Oh, so we're just doing this. Okay. Until I get a oh, see, there we went. We went too far out. Yeah.
That's how easy it is. Okay. From serve, you get the return to serve.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay. We're going to have Blaine, we'll have Blaine serve one over here. You hit it back.
Okay.
Keep an eye on the ball. Watch yourself hit the ball.
Does it matter which quadrant?
No.
Like, okay,
For here we go.
Now
we have two. We say in pickleball we have got 2 friendlies. So when he serves, it's got to bounce before you hit it. Okay. When you return, he's got to let it bounce before he hits it.
Okay.
That's important because
when he serves, I got to let it bounce before he hits it back. Okay.
Yeah,
or before
and then
I hit it back to him.
Right, and then he's got to let it bounce. Okay. That's important in pickleball. You have those 2 free. We call them 2 friendlies.
Okay, but otherwise, is it back and forth like?
After that, then things change.
Then
okay, then you can
get a little crazy.
Then it gets crazy. Then you can start taking things out of the air.
Oh goodness. Okay.
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 Blaine, can you serve a nice easy one?
You're doing this one, right? You're showing me?
Oh, I'll show you. Okay.
I can try, as long as he's nice to me.
Okay, I'll do one first.
You do
I'll
one first. Okay.
Okay, so it doesn't matter where you put it over there.
Okay. Oh. 4.
Let's do another one.
4. Yeah. Oh, I cannot get it.
Let's get another one.
I think it's because I'm left-handed.
No.
No?
So when we start, since we're receiving, we get an advantage. You have to be behind there because they're going to serve it deep behind the baseline.
Okay.
You have to. He's serving to this quadrant, right, Daniel?
Yes. Okay.
We've got an advantage because I get to come here to the kitchen or the non-volley line. Okay. So we have an advantage. In pickleball, we always want to get to the kitchen as quick as we can, because this is where we play most of the game. Okay? This is where we can cover a court easiest. If we're there, balls can go a lot bigger distance. Here we just have from here, okay, over to here.
Okay.
With 2 people here, we can pretty well cover this.
Okay.
Okay? So we're always trying to get here as quick as we can.
Okay.
So we have an advantage because we have 1 person here right now. Okay? So if Blaine serves, we'll just, you hit it back, and whether you make it or not, that's okay.
Okay.
After you hit it, you run up here and join me up at the kitchen.
Okay.
Excellent, yeah. And you come right there. Okay. So what Blaine did was a very important shot in pickleball called a third shot drop. Okay. When we're both here, they're both stuck at the back at the baseline there.
Okay.
Okay. So we would try and keep them back because we have an advantage. If they're back there and we're here, they're more than likely to make a mistake than we are. Okay. So we're here. So Blaine did what we call a third shot drop. Okay. So he had the ball come and drop it right in the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So this is where that important dink shot comes in.
The dink shot. Okay.
So he did a short third shot drop here.
Right.
We cannot attack that ball.
Okay.
So they're able to come to the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay. So Blaine, Julian, you come up to the kitchen.
So it's okay that I let it drop before
Yes.
I hit it. Okay.
Okay. When you get here, you can't, if it's up in the air like this, you can't step in the kitchen and hit it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's illegal. Okay. If it bounces, I can step in there and hit it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So that's why Blaine put it in there like that. We could step in there.
Yeah.
And we cannot attack this ball, do a fastball, and try and kill the shot. Okay. So then we have to do what we call the dink shot.
Okay.
And it just kind of sounds, it is what it sounds like, just a little dink. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
I'm confused. So he hit it here and I hit it back.
Okay.
That was okay, right?
If it's in the air, you
Okay.
can't be in here.
If it's in the, okay.
If it bounces, you can step in here.
But then the dink shot is just this little thing, right?
Right. But if you put it in here and
it has
keep
to
it
go
low,
into their kitchen?
yeah,
It
put
has
in,
to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't have to. You can do any shot you want.
Okay.
But if you put it in here, they can't attack it.
Okay, they can only attack it if it goes beyond the kitchen, right?
Well, no, it's too low. Like if you do a dink that's up like this, yes, Julian can attack it right from there. Okay, if he doesn't step across this line, he can, if it comes here, he can boom, a fast, hard one. Okay, that's why a dink shot is just low and close to there, they can't attack it.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of strategy in this game, lots to think about and a lot to keep you on your toes. And Richard, thank you so much for showing me some of the tricks of the sport. I think I better keep practicing if I'm going to get any better. This was Richard Boris at the Coaldale Pickleball Court. I'm Jeanette Roche. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks so much for watching.
Hope to see you on the courts, Jeanette.
For sure. Well, let's keep practicing here.
Okay.
Okay.